Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Welcome to an Ask the Cheeseman, and this is episode 74. Great to see you. Great to see you all here. It's fantastic to see you as always. Okay, there's so many people joined the stream early, probably because I started it early. Just sort of try something different this time, just to make sure that I can see that everything's working without asking you if it's working or not. So that's all very cool. Now, just one person I'm missing is Kim. I'm just wondering if she's actually there. Are you there, Kim? I'll soon find out. Okay. Anyway, g'day to, who are we going to start off with? Jackson was the first. G'day, Anthony, Josh, BWG, Danielle, WP, Craig, and we got Almighty Threon, Wesper, Thomas, Ali, Maddie, Alpha something, Alpha Wolf. G'day, mate. How are you? Crazy Games, and Christopher. Good to see you here. And still no Kim. Anyway, and g'day to Roy. Oh, there she goes. Sorry, my pop-up box thingy would not open. Right. Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Kim, for turning up to the stream. You are the producer after all. And Geordie's here as well. All right, so shall we get the show on the road? Let's start the intro. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. G'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. And as I mentioned before the intro, this is episode 74 of Ask the Cheeseman, where you can ask your home cheese making questions. And fingers crossed, I'll be able to answer them for you. If I don't know, I'll take a note down and answer them next time round. Anyway, let's have a look. First question of the day is from Mad Welshie. How's my week been? Well, it's been pretty good. Yeah, so not much more to say there. I've done a stack of videos. In fact, first of all, I'd like to shout out to new member this week is for YouTube memberships is Drew F. Thank you, Andrew, for your contribution via memberships. And the patron of the week is Craig Castry. And I think we saw Craig on the stream already in the chat. So thank you to both of you guys for financially supporting the show. Now, I've been very busy doing videos. First of all, coming up soon, we will have lactose-free queso fresco because my daughter was around here on the weekend and she's lactose intolerant. So I decided to see what sort of, whether we could make cheese from lactose-free milk. So it's real pasteurized, homogenized cow's milk, about 3.8% fat, and it's got, what's it got added to it? Not lipase, I don't remember. Lactase. So it's got lactase enzyme added to it, so it splits the lactose into glucose and galactose. So we made a lactose-free queso fresco, which we recorded, and Amy made, and we also made a lactose-free quick mozzarella, so that can be done as well. That turned out fantastic. I did a brick cheese taste test, which is coming out soon as well. And in post-production at the moment, we've got a blue Gouda, so watch out for that. It'll be a non-pierced blue, so hopefully some of the blue flavour will be throughout the Gouda, and it should taste similar to Old Amsterdam. So we'll see how that goes. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. And don't forget, during the show, if you want to send some love my way, there's the super chat, little $sign down there on the chat box, and most of the proceeds of that goes to us, which is good. and YouTube take about that much. Anyway, so some other questions. Almighty Threon says, speaking of Kazu Marzu, have you ever tried or tasted one? The answer is no, and I'm not going to. Maggots in my cheese is not something I'd be up into. Bacon says, what is a good starter cheese to begin with? One without rennet, very easy. Ricotta. So do a whole milk ricotta using whole milk. There's a recipe on the channel, so check that out. One with rennet, a good one to start with is halloumi. That's pretty simple and foolproof, so there's two good cheeses to start with. Christopher asks, if you could, would you rather use raw cow's milk? Yeah, I think I would. I've had enough experience now that I kind of know what's going on with milk, and if I was experiencing any failures with, say, raw milk, then I would know how to combat them, if you know what I mean. Because milk fat varies with non-standardized milk. It's very difficult sometimes to figure out how much rennet to add, whether you need to add starter cultures, and then you've got to be cognizant of the amount of whether you have to heat treat it, use low temperature long hold to pasteurize it, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I would use cow's milk. Mad Welshie, thank you for throwing that £1 my way. Fantastic. Geordie says, hi Gavin, I can mature my farmhouse cheddar blue for longer than 3 months. Oh, can I? I'm thinking about 5 months ready for Christmas. Yeah, definitely. When I cut it open at the 3-month mark, you would have seen some good marbling and veining. I would have liked to let it age longer, but unfortunately, once they're cut, they're almost impossible to age any further. So I think I'll make another one soon, just for personal use, not do a video about it or anything, but it was a really lovely cheese. One of the blessed other cheesemakers, one of the best blue cheeses that I've made in a long, long time. Craig says, thank you. Oh, that's for me thanking him. Lovely. Thank you, Craig. BWG says, have you ever thought of making a frozen cheese from non-homogenized milk? Frozen cheese. No, I don't quite understand. To freeze cheese? Don't know. Sorry, try that one again. Alpha Wolf says, where do you get the starter cultures that you use from the yellow vials, and do they ship to the US? Yes, indeed, they do. They do. We do ship them to the US, which is, and they make it safely there, and they're all happy. We ship all over the world, so all our starter cultures can be shipped just about anywhere except we have some issues with Israel and Saudi Arabia. They keep confiscating stuff. Libya wouldn't accept stuff in there. There's a few countries that don't, but most of the world, we're fine. And they get there, and we've had lots of people make successful cheeses. And we sell them in our shop. So if Kim could throw up a link, if she hasn't already, to where all of the cheese-making stuff is, then that's fantastic. And Christopher, thank you so much for that $5 that you throw my way as well. It's good to see a lot of the members on board. We've got Drew Effers on there as well. G'day, mate. How are you? And Christopher, you can see that their names are highlighted in bold text, and they've got a little cheese wedge after their name. That means they've been a member for less than a month. And as they progress in membership, they get a different icon. Pretty cool. They also get advanced viewing of the cheese videos, the how-to ones, the ones where I make a cheese. Not necessarily the taste tests, because they're pretty quick to make and I can get them out there pretty quick. But I have to, for those longer ones, it's best if I leave them unlisted for more than 2 days, and I let all the members see those 2 days early. So that's nice to be a member, something you get a little bit earlier. Okay, more questions. Let's have a look. Where are we? Very says, I want to make Limburger. Have you thought about trying to make this? Yes, now that my cheese cave is clear from brick cheese, then yes, I'll be making Limburger soon. Bacon says, when is the triple pepper jack taste test? Mate, you've missed it. It's already been on. So go back through the channel and have a look. Craig says, thanks for the heads up on Inglenook Dairy. I now have a weekly standing order in place. It's great milk and fantastic cream. Indeed it is. And I'm so happy for them to be suppliers of milk for the channel. So most of the cheeses, they supply the milk free of charge, just for a quick 10-second shout out. So, no, good mob. Troy and his Mrs. Rachel do make some fantastic milk there. And Jackson's trying to plumb up some some people to watch the channel, which is cool. Ali says, so is now teaching us how to make cheese, Mr. Gavin. So is now teaching us. Yes, I do. I do teach people how to make cheese, but unfortunately the courses are very limited. When we do workshops and stuff like that, and I only teach 3 really basic cheeses because normally it takes a long time. Jason, NKY Homesteading, good morning to you. Josh says, I recently made Emmentaler 2-gallon recipe. How long shall I age it? Is my cheese cave. It's very small. Fearful of drying it out. Well, you should have some eye development after at least 6 weeks. I would wax it. If you haven't waxed it already, then wax it now. If it gets any cracks in it, then you can re-wax it, so it's no big deal. So try that. Timo says, hi, Gavin, I just waxed my first cheese. Is humidity still important after cheeses are waxed? There's 2 schools of thought of that. Depends on the wax you use. If you use microcrystalline wax, which most cheesemakers do these days, then you really don't have to keep the humidity up. It won't crack if it's not humid enough. So, but then some people, if you use beeswax, it does crack if the humidity's not high enough. So there you go. Mad Welshie says, to the best cheesemaker of our time, Gavin, you're my hero. Thank you very much, Mad Welshie. Can I call you Big Gavo? No, you can't. Just Gavin, it will be fine, or Gav. Where am I up to? Cosmic F. G'day, Gavin. Apologise if this has been answered before, but I've been making some gouda the last few weekends. I was curious if you need to use non-chlorinated water when you wash the curds. It's not as important, no. So you can get away with using tap water. Really, the non-chlorinated water is only for when you dilute the rennet and the calcium chloride, and yeah, for gouda, that's all you'll need. Plus a starter culture, of course. Because the chlorine reacts with the rennet and it inhibits its ability to coagulate the milk. So that's the only time you really need to use it. If you're washing the curds, then as long as your tap water is clean and all that sort of stuff, and it's from a good source, then you don't have any problems. Josh says, how do you become a member? Well, if you're watching this video now on the live page, you should see a little button just below the watch screen, and it should say join. It's down, where is it? It's down here somewhere. It says join, and that's how you become a member. So if you want to, that's fine. And that's fantastic. So yeah, you get to watch everything a couple of days earlier. I'm working on some other perks for it, but I haven't quite got my head around it yet. Patreon has different tiers of membership, all the way up to actually getting a feta cheese kit sent to you if you do a $75 a month, which is my highest tier. $75 a month. I don't expect anybody to do that, but yeah, we've had a couple of people do some $20 tiers lately, and they get a copy of my ebook, which is worth $17, sent to them. So yeah, so that's what's going on. Kitty Cat says, I'm here, but I've been lurking. I have a cat snoozing on me. Lovely to see you again, Wendy. Ali says, Mr. Gavin, can you ship your products to Saudi Arabia by DHL? Unfortunately, we can't. DHL and Australia Post have similar problems. The starter cultures, anything that we ship there gets confiscated. So I don't quite know what the issue is at Saudi Arabia, but yeah, that's some of the issues we've had so far. Okay, so Brian says, is there a cheese that you didn't get quite right, but you are going to try again? Yeah, there is, Brian, and that's cottage cheese. Of all the cheeses, you would think that I would be able to master cottage cheese, but no, I've tried twice and failed so far. It certainly doesn't look like any cottage cheese I've ever tasted, and in the end, really, it ends up as cream cheese. So it's something that I wanted to have another go at and get a video up there for cottage cheese. Christopher says, yes, that triple pepper jack looked amazing. Would be a great melting for some incredible nachos. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm really a bit of a pussy as far as it comes to hot chili stuff. But even Kim thought it was hot because she could handle it a lot better than what I could. So, yeah, so it's incredible cheese. I've still got half the cheese I've given away. We've eaten a quarter. Well, Kim's eaten a bit, and there's still a little bit left. But I've given away a quarter, and we've still got a half in the normal kitchen fridge, that's been vac packed, so that may last a while. Matt says, am I too ambitious starting with Parmesan? And hi, Gav. Oh, hello, mate. No, not really, but the only problem is you really will have some delayed gratification because I wouldn't crack into a Parmesan any less than 10 months because the flavour development's just not there if you cut it earlier. So maybe you could start with a Parmesan. There's no hassle doing that, but then follow it up with some fresh cheeses. So at least you get some benefits or you can reap some rewards of your cheese making. So yeah, it's cool. Jason from NKY Homesteading says, how does farmhouse cheddar compare to regular cheddar? I'm thinking about making this one this weekend. It's a lot crumblier. I found that farmhouse cheddar, or better known as stirred curd cheddars, which doesn't have a cheddaring phase to it. It's actually, you just stir it longer and it gets rid of some more moisture. It's a lot drier than what normal cheddar is. So that's the main difference that I can find anyway after having made both of them. Burns New says, can you explain quickly when in the cheese process the cultures are acting? How do you tell if the cultures are dead or if you do not use any culture at all? Okay, good question. The culture's main it's got two uses, or two things it does for us. The first one is it acidifies the milk so the rennet can act and coagulate the milk. So it slightly acidifies the milk for us by converting lactose into lactic acid. That's its first job. After we've pressed the cheese, the mesophilic starter cultures start to die off and leave behind enzymes. Those enzymes then start to work on the fats and proteins in the cheese that give us flavour. Now, you'll find that you may find if you are holding onto a sachet of starter cultures, or direct vat starter cultures anyway, and if you find that your rennet doesn't set, it can be one or two things. It can be the culture's dead, or the milk, there's something wrong with the milk, as in it's heat treated and it's not going to work for you. So there's a couple of signs that the culture may be dead, but they're the two main things that cultures do for us. Okay. Next, Tar Kazam. Hi, Gavin. Hello, how are you? Jason says, I've been making a stir curd cheddar. I've been using the recipe you have for blue cheddar minus the blue. It has turned out dry. What can I do differently to make it more moist? Cut down the stirring time. So If you cut down by 25%, you'll probably get a much moister cheese. So it's the action of the stirring after you've cut the curds that releases the whey and makes the cheese drier. So try that. Maddie says, what is the longest time you've aged a Parmesan and what were the results? I have aged a Parmesan for 18 months, so longer than the one I just cracked open last weekend. And that actually had calcium lactate crystals in it, which was a nice touch, and it was more crumblier than the one that I recently opened. So I thought it was actually a lot better. And the thing was, with the first few Parmesans I made, I actually added calf lipase as well, and the flavour was a lot stronger. It was more piquant than the one I recently opened. I didn't use any lipase in that. I wanted to try something different. So I actually would add at least an eighth of a teaspoon of lipase next time I make a Parmesan, because it's, with real Parmigiano Reggiano, it's the size of the wheel of cheese and the conditions it's aged in that makes it that crumbly texture and the really, lovely, amazing flavour. With these smaller wheels that we have, you just can't replicate that unless you add lipase to the Parmesan, or age it longer and keep it moist somehow, like I did with the vacuum packing. Timo said, would I ever strat brew beer, our wine, and use it in your cheeses? Would you ever straight brewing beer? I think you might have got some of the words wrong there, but Timo, I'm actually planning on making a beer infused cheese very soon. So whether I soak the curds in the beer, I'm going to use a dark beer, similar to Guinness or a dark porter or something like that. I'm going to allow the curds to sit in that, make sure it's warm, let them sit in that for about 20 minutes, and see what sort of flavour and what sort of visual texture I get out of that as well. I'm going to use a cheddar style sort of cheese. Not sure which one, but I'll figure it out. I'll see which ones are usually infused with beer that way. D. Perry says, hi Gav, first time here. I am looking to get into cheese making. Want to try my sous vide to cook cheese. Is that viable? Yeah, definitely. So you can use the sous vide as the water, control the water temperature, and then put your double boiler in the water. So usually a sink or a big plastic tub or something like that. Fill that with water, put your pot of milk in there, and there's a bit of a delay on the temperature. But a lot of cheese makers in the face group books that I'm in, the Facebook groups that I'm in, a member of, swear by using a sous vide for heating their milk. So yeah, if you want to join a really good Facebook group, there's a couple. There's an Aussie one called Curds and Whey, and the other one is Learn to Make Cheese, which has a massive membership, over 10,000 cheese makers there, so you could try that. Okay, where I'm up to. Babs, hello Babs. Good morning. Wondering what the longest duration you can leave the curds to heal after cutting. My last couple of cheeses had fracturing, resulting in a dry finished product. Look, 10 minutes. I wouldn't do it any longer than 10 minutes, because what tends to happen is the horizontal cuts you've made kind of fuse together again, and they form one massive big cube. I tend to have that when I use my curd cutter. If I wait longer than 5 minutes, the cubes just will fuse back together again. You could be a problem with your either the milk or not enough rennet, but don't overuse rennet, because if you tend to overuse rennet, then you'll get the finished product would tend to be a little bit bitter. You'll have an aftertaste. So, yeah, leaving it for 10 minutes is probably as long as I'd leave it. Jackson says, does cheese have different texture or taste if it is lactose free? Well, the ones we tried, no, they didn't, which was good. Well, maybe a little bit sweeter because you could really taste the glucose. Um, because lactose is a complex sugar, whereas glucose is a very simple sugar. And the cheeses were a lot sweeter than what I was used to, but they were absolutely delicious. You won't actually see the videos; they're pretty cool. Um, Christopher says, "Thanks. I live outside Buffalo, New York, home of the Buffalo Chicken Wing. I always wonder why it was called Buffalo Chicken Wings or Buffalo Wings. I thought buffaloes don't have wings. So hot is good. Cool. David, good to see you on the chat. How's keep calm and eating more cheese coming? Patiently waiting. It's a lie. Yes, look, I've been working on it every 2 weeks when I've got time. Whenever Kim and I go away for our little mini breaks, what happens is I take my iPad and my keyboard and I hammer out more recipes and more text. So slowly but surely, I know I promised by the end of March, but with these headaches and all the other things I've been having to go through, then we're getting there. Slowly but surely, we will have a book very soon, or the second book anyway. Okay. What's that? Bengit. How is pressing affecting the cheese, and what happens if you press a low press cheese super hard, or vice versa? Yeah, that's a good question. So, what happens if you make a hard cheese and you don't press it hard enough? What usually happens is it falls apart. If you press a soft cheese too hard, what usually happens is a lot of the fat content, because the curds are a lot moister, a lot of the fat content, you can see the whey is really cloudy and stays cloudy. That cloudiness, that's the fat seeping out of your cheese, and you'll lose the flavour of the cheese. So that's the two things that usually happen. Bacon says, have you ever made a extra sharp cheddar, or will you try that later on? The cheddar that I matured for a year, and there was a taste test after a year, that was extra sharp. That was vintage cheddar, and it was pretty bitey stuff. Really nice cheese, but I haven't made a cheddar for a while, besides the stir curd cheddar I made for the blue. But yeah, it'd be nice to make another cheddar again. I'll get some time eventually. Only problem is, every time I make a cheese video, I get a chance to make that cheese once, or maybe twice, depends on the sort of cheese. If I muck it up the first time, I'll still show the video, because I like to show the good with the bad, similar to what I did with the provolone videos. Yeah, so if I do make another one, I'll show what I did differently. Usually I'll put a twist on it, add some flavouring or something like that. Ken, g'day Ken. I made a Stilton using your recipe, and for my taste it was great, but my friends tell me it's too strong. Okay. Number two, my second Stilton has wept quite a lot and then quite mushy on one end, and I've had to scrape it away. Now I have it out of the maturation box and in the cave. Okay, so is the question, why is it too mushy? If the humidity's too high for Stilton or any of those blue ripened cheeses, they tend to not mushy, but they tend to get a surface layer on them that starts to go creamy. Very similar to the petite blue cheese that I made, which ripened from the outside in, not the inside out, like I should have. That's kind of what happens. So if you lower the humidity, then your cheese will dry out more, which is good, and you'll get that traditional Stilton sort of flavour and texture. Geordie says, my second Tilsit is nearly ready and is better than my first attempt, but like the first one, it doesn't have an oval round shape that yours did. Any ideas? It bulges on the sides at the top and bottom. Bulges on the sides. Yeah, mine kind of bulged on the sides. It went flat-ish. But those washed rind sort of cheeses, wait till you see my brick cheese in a couple of weeks' time, the taste test. You'll see a cheese gone crazy. It flattened and did all sorts of stuff, but the taste was absolutely amazing. So don't worry about it too much, Geordie. As long as the flavour's there, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. Um, on a cheese platter, it doesn't really matter. Jackson, good night, and good night to you. D. Perry says, um, somewhere, I've missed it, I've lost it. Where the heck is it? Oh, there we go. Oh, by using the sous vide, I mean as a double boiler, not immersing it in the milk. Yeah, that's correct. So whatever you do, never immerse a sous vide heating wand stick thing into your milk because it'll burn it because of the elements. Just use water as a water jacket. Brizzy girl, g'day. How are you? Drew says James Squire Jack of Spades Porter. That would be a very nice beer to wash your cheese in. John, Gavin, after a month or so, my pepper jack and herb cheese started to lose a lot of whey. Is this because they are vacuum sealed? Any way to present this other than waxing? Um, yeah, it's exactly what happened to my pepper jack after a month, maybe 6 weeks. All of the whey started to come out of the cheese, and I do believe it was one of two things. Um, the rub that I put on the outside had salt in it, so that drew the moisture out. And also, I found that the vacuum sealing, I think the pressure that it exerted on the cheese, at a certain stage in the cheese's development, it wanted to just all the moisture came out. So next time I make something like that, I'll naturally dry the rind out a little bit, enough that I can actually wax it. So I think that's the only way to prevent it. It's the vacuum seal was exerting so much pressure on the cheese that the moisture's coming out. So I think that's what's happened. Charles says, any way to make queso fresco take on a sharper taste without aging? There is one method I know, and that is adding a bit of lipase. So lipase from a goat. Or using 50% cow's milk and 50% goat's milk in the recipe. And you'll have a sharper taste after about 2 days, maybe 24 hours. 24 hours to 2 days, you'll get a better flavour profile because it is a pretty bland sort of cheese, right? So add lipase or add goat's milk. So that works. Where am I up to? Tariq Kazam says, does the milk used to make Tom cheese have to be pasteurised? No, there's lots of raw milk Tom cheeses. Tom's a very generic sort of name for a type of cheese that's made in the Alsace-Lorraine area in France. But there's any outside of that area, you'll find lots of Toms being produced, mainly from unpasteurised milk. So yes, you can make a Tom from unpasteurised milk. Grant says, Gavin, can you press the cheese too much, and what will happen if you do? Similar to the question before around pressing the cheese too hard too quickly, you'll notice in some of the steps in some of the recipes, it says apply a light pressure or 5 kilograms or what's that, 10 pounds of pressure for 30 minutes to let the curds knit together. And by using a lower pressure, you're not going to lose a lot of fat. The whey that comes out won't be too cloudy. But if you press it too quickly, too fast, you're going to lose a lot of the fat content, and the flavour of the final cheese will be compromised. So that's what happens if you press too hard, too much, too quickly. So gently does it, and if you're making a cheddar that has a really heavy weight or parmesan or anything like that, then you work your way up to it over 2 or 3 pressings, and you'll find that you don't lose that fat content. Warhead says, I live in far north Queensland. Is the weather and climate too much for maturing a cheese here, or do I need to build a special cheese cave? By special cheese cave, I hope you mean something as simple as a fridge with an external thermostat is all you'll need. The temperature that you make the cheese in Um, it depends. I know that I've been to Cairns and lived in Darwin for 3 years, and it's hot as anything. But during the dry season is the perfect time for making cheese because the humidity's not as high. You won't have any troubles with rennet setting and all that sort of stuff. Um, and most of the cheeses, as long as the temperature the first initial temperature isn't the same as the room temperature you're in, you should be right for making cheese. Um, Wilma Charlie says, made your Stilton turned out fantastic. I need to make more blue cheeses following your tutorials. Could I add blue culture to a Leicester recipe? Many thanks, Anthony. Yeah, I couldn't see why not. Well, make sure you pierce it and all that sort of stuff. I just used a stir curd cheddar as a sample. I wanted to see. I remembered the first time I ever made farmhouse cheddar or stir curd cheddar that there were some fractures in the actual paste of the cheese after about 3 months. So I was hoping, fingers crossed, that those fractures would happen again and the blue would work its way down into those fractures if I pierced it. So, yeah, and it worked. Leicester is pressed a little bit higher than what I pressed the farmhouse cheddar. So maybe not. You could try it. Why not? It's a lovely cheese. I do like Leicester. Ken says, I meant to ask, will reducing the Roquefort culture help in making a mild flavour? Yeah, there's actually a few different types of Penicillium Roquefort. What they do is they don't put as much in the packet, so they mix it up with maltodextrin and stuff like that. So we actually sell two styles. So there's a mild Penicillium Roquefort and there's a strong Penicillium Roquefort. In the farmhouse cheddar blue, I used a strong, but it wasn't overbearing because it was only a 3-month-old cheese and it was a hard cheese, so didn't have much chance to go through. But the flavour was fantastic. But yeah, I'm sure over in the UK there are cheese supplying shops that may have more than just one Penicillium Roquefort. Or if you halve it, yes, will have a milder flavour, definitely. And the lower the temperature that you mature the cheese at, the less Penicillium Roquefort activity there will be in the cheese as well. Grant says, how do you lower the humidity in the cheese cave? Lower the humidity. Don't know. I've never had that issue. Mine's always been fairly low at about 70%. And that's only because I've got there's a freezer unit in the top that when the fridge turns on, it freezes. When it turns off, all the ice melts. So there's a little tray under it and there's water in there all the time. So I get a fair bit of humidity in there. Lowering humidity? Good question. Not too sure. I've never had that issue. I've never had to tackle it. Sorry about that, Grant. Mill, hello. How are you? Narella says, hi, Gavin. I tried to make a kind of feta cheese. I had to use cow's milk since I don't have goats. Is there a bitterness after I checked? Sorry. But there is a bitterness after I checked it 2 days later. For the procedure, 40 minutes for curdling. After curdling, 20 minutes waiting. How can I get rid of this bitterness? What can be the reason? Couple of reasons. Main ones are too much rennet or too much calcium chloride if you use them. That can induce bitterness in a very fresh cheese like that. Also, not enough salt. But that's more if you age cheeses. But for a feta as simple as that, yeah, I would think that maybe too much rennet or too much calcium chloride. If you taste both of those, just neat, they are bitter as anything. So that could be the issue. D Perry, thanks for all the great info, Gavin, and your awesome videos. Thank you. Christopher says, Gavin, is your stainless steel pot 5 quarts, and how large is the smaller pot you use for the double boiler? Okay, so I've got 2 big pots. I've got one pot, the one that I do the 10-litre recipes in. That is a 3-gallon pot. So what's that? 15 litres. roughly 16 litres, 15, 16 litres, or 15, 16 quarts roughly. And the smaller one I use, I have another one that's only 2 gallons, which is 8 litres. And the smaller pot I use underneath is the double boiler thingo, is a 2 litre saucepan. And that's what I use for the double boiler. Both of them sit on there okay. They don't overbalance. There's no issues. But if you didn't want to use that sort of method, then I do have a video, Christopher, that shows ways of heating up the milk. Whether you can use just a normal sink of hot water, wait till the temperature comes up, and then pull the plug out, and the milk usually stays at the target temperature for quite a while. Or you can use a sous vide and set the temperature control, and it goes there and stays there forever, which is great. Norella says, Gavin, how do you understand the weight pressure from your cheese press? Is there a ruler on it? Most of the time it's a guesstimation. So I know that when the spring is fully closed and I'm using the 165 millimeter basket that I use, it's about 50 pounds per square inch of presser. If I half closed it, then it's 25 pounds. Quarter closed it, 12 and a half, and so on and so forth. So it's a guesstimation. There's no ruler on the side or anything like that, because the different amounts of curds, the ruler will be all over the place. But there are some cheese presses out there that do have that sort of thing, where they have just some wing nuts and they tighten a spring and have a little ruler and it tells you how many pounds of pressure you're applying to that cheese. But you got to remember that pounds per square inch is also a measurement of the area of the pressing plate you're using as well. If you're using a big pressing plate, then that little 50-pound spring won't be 50 pounds of pressure. For a larger pressing plate, it'll be a lot less. So it depends on the mold you use as well. There is a calculation, but I have off the top of my head, don't know it, but it's in one of the cheese books that I've got somewhere. Okay, so I hope that helps. Nicole says, hi Gavin, thanks for your videos and podcasts. On an old podcast, you described wiping your kefili with a vinegar and brine solution daily. Do you still recommend doing this? Can I vac pack? Yeah, look, you can vac pack. I'd prefer having a natural rind on the kefili. So I do use brine. So a very simple brine is 1 cup of water, boiled cooled water, and I put in 2 teaspoons of salt and half a teaspoon of vinegar, and then I basically wipe that. And just for that cheese, I add the vinegar, because it tends to dampen down the mold growth, which is pretty rampant on a kefili. But if you vac pack it, do that after the first week, because it matures for 3 weeks. If you really want to do that, the flavour will still be there. It'll be very nice. Okay, cool. Craig says you can use a humidity controller and plug a dehumidifier and humidify inside the fridge, then you have complete control. Now that works. Well done, Craig. Super AWAC says, what cheese requires the most cultures? Good question. The cheese that I have added the most amount of cultures to is Manchego. I had to replicate sheep's milk, and I didn't have any at that time. I had cow's milk. So what I did was I added some mesophilic starter culture, and then I added some thermophilic starter culture, and then I added some lipase as well to get the authentic flavour. And I think I cracked it. I think I come up with a pretty good one. There's a video on that one, so go and check out Manchego, and you'll see that I used 3 different cultures, or 2 cultures and an enzyme. So yeah, it works well. John also says, Gavin, a low humidity. I have a little reusable passive device that absorbs the humidity in my cheese fridge. Check out on Amazon, Eva Dry E500. Oh, there you go. Pretty cool. Geordie says, Ken, I made my own penicillium rake 40. It's easy. Take rye bread, and the blue from a blue cheese, leave it in a box for a month. Yeah, I've seen that technique used in David Ash's book, The Art of Natural Cheese Making. He makes his own blue penicillium roqueforti as well. But yeah, it's kind of grows in lots of places, penicillium roqueforti, especially my cheese fridge. That and blue and so blue mold growth and Brevibacterium linens, kind of runaway molds. Doesn't matter how much I clean the cheese fridge. Crazy. That's why when I do a natural rind, I'll do it in a cleaned ripening box, just a plastic box with a mat or something on the bottom. Could be something as simple as using sushi mats to keep the cheese off of the bottom, so that any whey that's expelled, you will also find that it doesn't swim in it and make the bottom of the cheese soggy and stuff like that. But yeah, make sure that you sanitize your ripening boxes either with vinegar or a weak bleach solution, bleach/water solution, or Star San or Milton we use here in Australia as well to do baby bottles and stuff like that. There's many ways to get that plastic nice and sanitized so that other molds and yeast don't grow on it. So, Charina, I think that's how you pronounce it. Hello, Gavin. Have you ever thought about making Danish Danbo cheese? It's an amazing cheese that is rather smelly, but oh so nice tasting. I haven't had a request for that before, but I will see if I can find a recipe for Danbo. So yeah, okay, cool. Paul says, hi Gavin, thanks for the recipe for queso Oaxaca. My wife is already asking me when I'm gonna make more. Great flavour. Yeah, it was a very nice surprise when I made that cheese that it worked out so well. Same here. It was gone in no time flat. We're actually I didn't make it in preparation for a pizza night, but once we tasted the cheese, we thought, oh, we've got to go and light up the pizza oven that I made, and there's a video on how I made that as well. Yeah, so we invited some friends around. We put some queso Oaxaca on top of the pizzas, and it melted perfectly. I grated it, and I pulled the strings apart, put the strings all over the pizza, and oh, absolutely delicious. Melted perfectly. Flavor was there. It was just so nice. And Grant says, thanks, John. We've got 10 minutes to go before the end of the show. So if you've got any more questions, that will be, actually, you pronounce my name, Karina. Oh, okay. From Sweden. Oh, hello, Karina from Sweden. Timo says, have you ever used your cheese to make a cheese fondue? Funny you should say that. When I had some Gruyere and I had some Piora, which are both Alpine cheeses, we bought a fondue set and we never used it. We haven't used it yet, so I'm hoping to make some more Alpine cheeses and make some fondue. In fact, that Parmesan I made would be very nice, adding some of it, not as the main cheese, but that would be nice to add to a fondue. Selena says, what happened after you ate the triple pepper jack? Well, a couple of things. I got a headache, which tends to happen if I eat really spicy food. My mouth really hurt. My tummy hurt. And you can imagine what happened afterwards. Chili burns three ways. Once after you eat it, once when you first eat it, I can't remember the term. But anyway, yeah, it wasn't pretty. So there you go. I do have a cheese joke. It's pretty good, I think. It's out of the little cheesy joke book. What is Dick and Harry's favourite cheese? Anyone? The answer is Tom. Tom, Dick and Harry, get it? Anyway, there it is there. And that's from the Say Cheese cheesy book, which is very corny. Kim got it for me for my birthday. It was lovely. There you go, Tom, Dick and Harry. Hilarious. Ken says there is a recipe for Blue Leicester. Unfortunately, Gavin. It is on Jim Wallace's site in the USA. He classes it as advanced. Blue Leicester. Let's have a look at that. I'm into blues at the moment. Blue Leicester. Okay, I'll check it out, Ken. Paul says, I did do something a little different when stretching the curd. I stretched it and then put it directly in ice water. I think it might have really helped. Might have helped be really stringy. Yeah, that would work. And Olheim, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I mucked that up. First time to catch you live. Much love from Norway. Lovely to see you on the chat. Mill, Narella says, I live in a very hot climate, room temperature around 30 to 35, without an air conditioner. Is there any cheese that I can dry/rest for aging at this temp? Yeah, all the hard cheeses. So all the Alpine cheeses, where the temperature gets heated up to, initially, usually it's about 40 degrees something. So that'll combat your room temperature. And you only rest the cheese after it's come out of the press, after it's been brined. Most of those cheeses are brined, until it's touch dry, until it feels like a clammy handshake. Then put it straight into the ripening box, or have whatever you're going to do with it, vac pack it or wax it or whatever, right? And then pop it straight in your cheese cave. You don't want those cheeses drying out too much, especially at those temperatures. You don't want too much moisture loss. You may get cracking on the outside of your rind as well, so that's no good. Paul says, I have 3 to 4 Mexican friends, and they said it was the same flavour. That's fantastic. I never knew. With all these cheeses that I make, I don't know if they're the right flavour or not, unless there's a commercial version that I bought ahead of time and had a little bit of that and said, oh, gee, I want to make that. But yeah, otherwise, I just don't know. Craig says, what temperature do you have your cheese fridge set on, average, and do you alter it? And if so, for which cheese? Okay. Now, the good thing about my little cheese cave, and I think I showed that in the video, is that down the bottom of the fridge, it stays at a nice between 12 and 13 Celsius, and that's where I age the majority of the cheeses. If I'm doing a bloomy rind cheese, I'll put it in the freezer compartment. It doesn't freeze, but it stays a lot colder. It stays between about 7 and 8 degrees Celsius, which is absolutely perfect for bloomy white mold cheeses. So that's how I get around that, and that seems to work pretty good, Craig. Absinthe Mind Matt says, greeting Gavins from Atlanta. I have recently gotten into your videos. As a result, I've chosen to make my own cheese soon. Fantastic. Enjoy the experience, because it is a lot of fun. Charles says, pots and all the utensils have to be stainless, no aluminium. I vaguely remember you mentioning why in a previous video, but can't remember the reasoning. The reasoning is that aluminium and milk react together, and you'll get a metallic taste in the milk. Aluminium tends to leach heavy metals into the milk, and you don't want that, because it's been proven that aluminium can cause Alzheimer's in later life. An accumulation of it in your system. That's the reason why. Sam says, g'day from Tassie Cool Vids. Thank you very much, Sam. Brandon, any advice for making cheddar with buttermilk? Well, it just happens that when I made the pepper jack, I used buttermilk instead. So for 10 litres of milk, I used 250 millilitres of buttermilk. That seemed to be enough mesophilic culture, and it worked well, except for all the whey coming out after about 4 to 6 weeks. But I think that was something else. It wasn't anything to do with the buttermilk. In fact, people who have also followed that recipe and used direct vat inoculated starter cultures, the freeze-dried starter cultures, had exactly the same issue. So when they vac packed it, but when they didn't vac pack it, it was absolutely fine. It just became a moist cheese. There was no issue with it. Mind you, it was still a beautiful cheese. Don't get me wrong. Ken says, have I ever thought of revisiting some of your earlier cheeses? Have techniques improved since then? Yeah, I did. Well, when I did the Parmesan, I revisited that. That was the second cheese video I ever made. I think I'm going to remake Cafelli very soon because the lighting is shocking in that video, and I've improved since then. So that would be pretty cool. There's a couple that I want to do again. I want to do Emmentaler again because I didn't think I got that 100% like I did the Jarlsberg, which was absolutely amazing. And that blew my mind how cool that looked and how much it tasted just like Jarlsberg. So I want to try a holy Swiss cheese again, Alpine styles, with some propionic Shamani in it. So I want to try that again. So there's a couple of videos I'm going to remake soon once I get through all these other videos now. Mill says, for ripening, is it nice to have a cellar? Well, if you've got a cellar and the humidity's high enough, then yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And how about copper vessels? Well, copper actually reacts with the milk in a good way because copper naturally gets rid of yeasts and some bacteria. It's an antibacterial, and you'll find that a lot of Alpine cheeses are made using copper vessels, big copper vats, and it's tradition to make it in those. And it has some bearing on the flavour of that cheese. That's why they make it in those copper vessels. Okay, with 4 minutes to go, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you very much for coming along and asking all your questions on Ask the Cheeseman. And for all those first-timers, it was lovely to have you here. Obviously, without your questions, there is no show. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you turned up today and turned up and asked some questions. So that was fantastic. And in answer to Olheim's question, have you ever tasted Norwegian brown cheese? I've actually made it. There is a video, I called it Myost, but it may be Brunost, is the same thing. Yes, it was lovely. Very nice. From Way. But yeah, thanks very much. And don't forget, I think Kim's going to put some links up in a minute. If you want to buy supplies and kits or equipment, then pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au. If you want to check out the podcast, I will still be doing some episodes soon. Then I've got a little bit of time in my hands, so that would be cool. Don't forget to check out the merch store. Kim will have the link to that in a second. She's just put up the shop link, which is fantastic. So the merch store where you can buy cool videos and cool cups like this one, Certified Curd Nerd. I think there's even ball caps for those who are into them. That's cool. And don't forget that that there's a little join button down there somewhere underneath the video. If you want to become a member and get the videos a couple of days early and get a shout out on the show, like I do every week, then yeah, you can join that or become a patron. And there are higher rewards the more money you pledge every month. But thanks to all my patrons and members so far. They help support the show financially, so that's cool. And Kim, do you have the link for the pizza oven video if you can find it? If not, Grant, you'll have to search my YouTube channel. Go to the channel page, there's a little search. Just put in pizza oven and you'll find it, or brick clay oven, then you'll find it. And Kim's put up the link to the Cafe Press site there for cheeseman.tv, where you can find all the merch. Thanks once again. Really appreciate you turning up, and we'll see you next week. So see you later, everybody. Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds.